As we get closer and closer to the 2024 NFL Draft, I want to highlight what in my opinion might be the craziest story of them all. At one point, Quinyon Mitchell was from a small town of less than 3,000 people, had no offers coming out of high school, had such bad grades that he couldn't get on the field, and went to a school not known for producing first-round picks. Just a couple years later, though, Quinyon Mitchell became one of the best players in Toledo football history, had big-time programs from all around the country trying to lure him away with transfer money, and now looks like he'll be a first-round pick and a long-tenured player in the NFL. Quinyon Mitchell's rise seems pretty much impossible, and that's why today, we're going to talk about the random Toledo player who's flying into the first round. We're going to go through his story, his journey, why he's so hyped up, and talk about who this guy is. But before we talk about Mitchell, if you're a big fan of the NFL Draft or just football in general, be sure to quickly hit that subscribe button if you're new here, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I could cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Quinyon Mitchell. In order to understand how Mitchell got to this point, we first need to go back in time. He grew up in the tiny town of Williston, Florida, which had less than 3,000 people. It's about a half-hour south of Gainesville, and Quinyon had an interesting upbringing. For the first 9 years of his life, he lived at his grandma's house, and I'm sure that had a huge impact on it. From a young age, Quinyon was really fast, and his grandma said, quote, "He used to love running so much. Sometimes him and I would race, and he always won." Growing up, his grandmother had 3 rules for Quinyon. He had to be honest, be respectful, and treat others the way he would want to be treated. Football was also a rule for him. He grew up in a very football-oriented family, as he said he started playing when he was 6 or 7 years old. He said, quote, "Football was an extremely important part of my life. Since I was 6, everything I did revolved around it. Football helped me become the man I am today, and if it weren't for football, I probably wouldn't have gone to college. Playing college was always on my mind, and it's always been something I've wanted to do." In 2016, Mitchell was just a scrawny 5'6" kid who could barely hold up his helmet and didn't have much of a role on Coach Justin Wentworth's Williston High School team. But he's following the rubric of most of these stories as he grew 6 inches ahead of his sophomore year. All of a sudden, he went from nobody to a big deal, but it wasn't all fun and games. There was a lot of awkwardness and a lot of joint pain, but then he figured it out and seemingly put it all together. He went from being a face in the crowd to now being an undeniable player. He became the starting corner for the team and would never look back. He tried to emulate his game after players such as Darius Slay, Patrick Surtain, and Trent McDuffie, and he did become successful. His coach said, quote, "I'm not saying he didn't look a bit like Kermit the Frog, but he was just a naturally gifted athlete, and he can do it all." By Mitchell's junior year, he became Williston's lockdown defender and helped push the school into the playoffs for the first time in nearly a decade. He was a guy who also played basketball, as he was an insane athlete on the court, and then despite having an ankle injury, he averaged nearly 10 yards a carry as a senior. He also became a Class A person, as when Hurricane Irma ravaged Florida in 2017, he rode around in the back of his coach's truck, handing out food to anybody who needed it. In recruiting, there are 5-star athletes who get missed out on all the time. Mitchell was the perfect example of that. He was a small-town kid who had a late growth spurt and played through injury. This happens a lot more than recruiting coordinators will like to admit, but talent falls through the Power 5 all the time. This is also where his recruiting journey begins. At the time, Toledo head coach Jason Candle had started recruiting Mitchell at a Florida camp ahead of his junior year. Nobody knew who this guy was, and Toledo was the first team to ever go after him. Except after a big year, more teams would find out. He had 3 interceptions and ran a 10.6 in the 100-meter dash. After that, he got 11 more offers, and Mitchell was starting to become a bigger recruit. He also ran a laser-timed 4.37 40-yard dash time, and some bigger schools were starting to come after him. Schools such as Illinois, Arizona State, and Florida all started to pursue him, and it looked like Mitchell was about to blow up nationally. But there was one problem. He had some trouble in the classroom. His grades would begin to decline, and he admits he had a very low GPA coming out of high school. This would ultimately affect his offer sheet, but it did help stress the importance of taking care of himself off the field. From there, he would decide to commit to Toledo, and chose the Rockets over a plethora of other offers. Why the Rockets? He said, quote, "I chose Toledo because of the relationship that Coach Candle and the rest of the staff have shown me. They've been on my side in every situation." His grandmother also fell in love with Coach Candle, his demeanor, and how he would push Quinyon when he would get there. There's also another undeniable factor here though, his grades. While I don't know if his Power 5 offers were committable, the grades are surely to blame for that and not his talent. Despite all this, Mitchell was an unknown in college football, and Toledo had found a hidden gem. According to 24/7 Sports, Quinyon was a 3-star recruit, the number 159 corner, and the 1800th best player in the class of 2020. So how'd he end up doing in Toledo, Ohio? Well, when he arrived, he said, quote, "I didn't come here to be mediocre. I came here to break records and all of that kind of stuff." Things would start out very interesting for Quinyon. In his first season, he would have to gray shirt and would have to sit out an entire semester before he got there. He said being gray shirted was a very humbling experience, and it made him keep his head down and work. He had to stay on track and stay focused, and he was back home in Florida grinding each and every day. He said there were a ton of distractions thrown at him, but it was very humbling. One moment he was being recruited to play college football, and the next moment he was at home, hoping just to get on campus at some point. He would end up figuring it out though, as he would play a little bit in 2020, and his first big moment would come against Notre Dame in week 2 of the 2021 season. He was all over the field in their close loss, and he ended up picking up 5 tackles and a sack. He scared the heck out of the Irish, and this would actually put him on the NFL radar pretty early on. As a full-time starter in 2021, he'd end up starting in 2021, but would really blossom in 2022. He held his opponents to a 34.8 passer rating, and there was one game in particular where he went off. In a 2022 win over Northern Illinois, he had 4 total interceptions, 2 of which were pick sixes. He said, quote, "I don't feel that was my best game, but it did give me national attention. The week before, Northern Illinois played Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt ran a lot of cover 4, the same as us, so we just went into that week knowing how they were going to play, and the ball came right to me." This game put Mitchell on the map, and after an extremely productive 2022 season, the big boys started to come calling. Apparently, a handful of SEC schools offered him a ton of money and lucrative NIL packages to leave Toledo and come play in the best conference. Many expected him to leave, but that is not what would happen. He decided to pledge his loyalty to Toledo, and he turned everyone down without blinking. He said, quote, "This is home." While in the long term, if Mitchell becomes a bust, some would say it's risky to turn down that kind of NIL money. The 3 rules his grandma taught him seem to really be in his head, which shows high character. Before the 2023 season, Mitchell decided he wanted to change his number. It's no secret that college football players always want a jersey number that's single digits, and that's reserved for the top players. When he asked Coach Candle about this, he said sure. However, a few days later, Mitchell will return to his office and told him to axe the number change. His grandmother told him that the number 27 was good enough when nobody knew who it was, so it's good enough now. Honestly, that's awesome. This past season, Mitchell would earn second-team All-American honors, as he both led the MAC and finished second in the country with 18 pass breakups. He became one of the best corners in all of college football, and Toledo had a breakout season. Because of 2 good years, he now has cemented himself as a likely first-round pick. He could obviously go in the early second round, but Mitchell's performance at the Senior Bowl helped cement this. He said, quote, "I can hit with the big dogs. Going into that week, there was a lot of people saying I couldn't play against good competition, so I just went out there and dominated everybody." That would end up happening, as some say Mitchell was the best player at the Senior Bowl. In terms of his NFL potential, he's been tapped at 23 miles per hour, has 4.3 speed, and has more passes defended over the last 2 years than any defensive back in college football. According to Bleacher Report, his strengths are that he has very good vision and zone coverage, has great route recognition, is extremely patient, and shows the necessary speed to keep up with receivers. He gets to his top end speed rather quickly, has great turnover, is a great tackler, and is not afraid to be physical. His weaknesses include he's somewhat slow at transitions, doesn't always trust his eyes out of breaks, and can be somewhat slow in the open field. He's also been seen as a questionable tackler in open space, and he's also only played in the MAC. But overall, the strengths outweigh the weaknesses, as he has the skills to play both man and zone, has insane production, has insane speed, has a lot of experience, and in my opinion, also has the mental tools necessary. He's been doubted, has had to really work for his spot, had to earn his recognition, and has had to bet on himself. Those are the kind of players that have long NFL careers, as I'm not trying to take anything away from 5 stars or blue chip athletes, but Mitchell has truly had to put all the chips on himself and find a way to make it work. He's definitely motivated to help people back home, as he said, quote, "I want to be able to look at younger kids and tell them that you can really do this, to show them that it can really happen." It's pretty crazy. Mitchell came from a small town of 3,000 people, was buried on the depth chart as a sophomore, and then needed an insane growth spurt to even get some Power 5 interest. He ended up signing with Toledo, had to earn his way through a gray shirt, find a way to get on the field, and then became one of the best players in college football, but still no one really knew who he was. He also turned down SEC programs, and now will likely get rewarded by hearing his name called in the first round. Mitchell is a guy I'm extremely excited to watch, and I'll definitely be following his career, but what do you guys think? If you're a Toledo or NFL draft fan, what do you think of Quinyon Mitchell? What's another prospect I could take a look at in my next video? And who is your favorite group of 5 prospect? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.